been working the phones. He's spoken to a lot of the FI investors who could be affected by this CBDT circular. Nimesh, you're saying that they could be subjected to 2 or 3 instances of taxation. Yes. Explain that, and therefore, and what feedback have you got?
So Rima, that's the first big concern that most of the FPI investors have, that this CBDT circular clearly classifies them as part of the portfolio investors or strategic investors. That would mean that the taxation, the tax angle could be at not even 1 level, at 2 levels, but in some cases 3 levels. First, the tax has to be paid at the fund level. Second, if a large investor or any investor wants to redeem from that fund, he will have to pay tax at the investor level. And in some cases, for instance, if it's a US investor, there will be he'll have to pay tax in that jurisdiction as well, because he won't be able to offset in India even if he's paid tax in the Indian market. So this is the biggest concern what most of the FPI investors have, that this CBDT clarification has actually put them into the basket of strategic investors or P investors and not portfolio investors. Remember, for all the portfolio investors, there is so much of regulation which is already done. The KYCs have been done. It's regulated by SEBI. Everything is registered. So all the end users are known. Also, the fact that this portfolio investors, especially the India-rated funds, will be hugely impacted, because in that case, there are a lot of instances where they hold more than 5% of that fund into one particular stock. That would and especially for FPIs, this really doesn't mean, because they are not influencing the company in any sense in terms of whether the dividend policy or, for that matter, strategic investments. So as such, they are just 5% holders, but with no voting right or no influential right in that fund. So technically, they should not be taxed on that basis, what the P investors or others are taxed for. So this is one big clarification which is required, that the classification of FPI investors should not be the same as to what the P investors are, or for that matter, the strategic investors are. This actually issue has been created because of this Vodafone case. In Vodafone's case, they sold out the India unit and they didn't pay tax. So every entity has been classified as that, and which is why this FPI also comes into that particular category, which means not only at one level, but there could be multiple levels of taxation that these investors have to face. That's what Timsy said, that there could be a clarification on that front. The other big aspect is this 5% threshold limit. It really doesn't work in a fund structure, because there are a lot of long-only funds, emerging market funds, which puts money into India, and in many cases, some of the India-rated funds will definitely have more than 5% shareholding through the fund into one particular stock. So clearly, that's the second big thing which has been talked about. In fact, even after the first link that we did, I got some feedback from some investors. So all the PE guys and the FPI investors are trying to reach out to the government and trying to seek a clarification. The one figure which is looking very scary to me is the fact that through this portfolio investments, close to $40 to $50 billion is invested into India across asset classes, whether it's equity, whether it's real estate, or whether it's fixed income. Now that whole money could be under question mark, because this is something which is getting little stickier for most of the FI investors. Every now and then you see some or the other circular on tax front which actually jitters them. Rima, one thing, as things stand, what I understand from sources, still there is a hope that this will be clarified, which is why you're not seeing a big sell-off in the Indian markets from the portfolio investors. If this is not clarified in the next few days, or maybe in the budget, probably you'll see a huge implication of that in terms of large FI selling, which can come and hit the Indian markets. So wait and watch. I think Timsy is correct in the fact that maybe there will be some bit of clarification which might come, but this is something which is really at the mind of the investors at this point in time. Forget budget. I don't think anybody's even looking at budget or the budget proposed at this point. I think the biggest thing is they want a clarity on what this triple taxation or double taxation would mean in terms of portfolio investments into India.
Well, and the screen is telling us that there is still hope over there, because